Hello everyone and welcome back to the FRC Historian. I saw a really good comment on my last video, that being asking me what do you think the best championships are for playoffs? And it really got me thinking, because that's a personal question when it comes down to our own tastes. When it comes to me, my favorite championships are the ones where the playoffs have either an upset or have a deep historical meaning to FRC. Of course, games change every year, and of course there's a lot of turnover, but sometimes a championship playoffs will set into motion events that will change the future of FRC for both teams and the area around them. So what I'm going to be doing today is going over 10 of my favorite championships in regards to playoffs. Just a fair warning beforehand, we all like different types of playoffs. If your favorite playoffs are the ones with the high-scoring robots doing amazing, then I'd recommend either 2008, looking in the Einstein Finals, or 2018, looking at both Detroit and Houston, with those being higher scoring games with a little bit more domination in the finals. However, that isn't exactly what I'll be looking at today. What we will be doing is I'll be looking at the top 10 that I'll consider. What I'll be doing is going through all 10 chronologically, and then I can give a rating after this if you'd like me to. However, I'd recommend any of these 10, and I would love to hear your ideas in the comments below. Because when it comes down to these, it comes down to not only, hey, I was present at this event, I got to see this, this, and this, and I really enjoyed it. So what I've tried to do in the past is try looking a little bit more and broaden my horizons at these in context on a whole, so I would love to hear what you have to say. And I'd love to do something like this again in the future with, say, regional or district championship events. We're going to be starting off, of course, with 1999, the first one with alliances, of course. Now, why I mentioned 1999 specifically is due to the historical context of the bracket. In the semifinals of this event, we actually had two powerful alliances go against each other, with the winner making the finals and the loser being knocked out here. However, one thing important of note in 1999 is that there are only two teams who won two banners that year, that being the partners teams 27 Rush and 71 at the time Beatty, now Hammond. The two of them teamed up and won both the Great Lakes and Motorola Midwest regionals, and somehow ended up on the same alliance at the World Championship. I'm not sure how that happened, but these two teams were able to team up at both regionals, winning both regionals, and making it to the championship, teaming up together yet again. Now, with this in mind, in the semifinals, this alliance would go up against teams 45 and 111. The thing about this alliance is that both of these teams went to both of those regionals, Motorola and Great Lakes, and they both got knocked out early. So both of them had experience with being knocked out by the Beatty Rush Alliance. So they would come up with a plan, a strategy perhaps, where they would get up together and the Technocats robot would use their arm to knock over Beatty so that they'd be unable to score, and thus they were able to upset and make it to the finals of here. Now with this, normally this would be considered just a regular competition, with them being knocked out in the semis. However, with the context of those two teams being the only teams to win two competitions together until it'd be repeated in 2001 with 85 and 33, that adds some context of these two teams who not only did they win two regionals, but they teamed up at Worlds again. How many times have you won a competition with another team and you had the opportunity in the same division to fight? So this really goes to show and really gives props to teams 111, 45, and 84 for knocking out the two-time regional champions and moving on to the finals. And they had a hard time in the final as well. They went up against the champions, one Juggernauts, 48 Delphi Elite, and of course 176 Aces High, with those three teams going on to become the world champions. So, even with that strategy in the semifinals of knocking out the two-time regional winners, even they were knocked out in the finals. So I really do have to give them a lot of credit, and really do believe that 1999 would be a great championship to watch. There is some match video available of those semifinals and then the finals, and I would highly recommend watching it as it's been captured for us to watch today. Next one for 2004. With this game, this is the last year of two-member alliances, so this is actually before the introduction of the Serpentine. So although there are three-member alliances, that third one's a backup bot, and it was picked first by each alliance, meaning that number one would not only have the best number one pick, but also the best backup bot. So it really goes to show that here, not even in Einstein, but rather in the divisional level, you actually had two divisions where the number one alliance was knocked out, that being both Archimedes and Curie, with 121's Alliance knocking out 6033 and 1241, and of course 522's Alliance knocking out Chief Delphi 126 and 148. Now, of course, with 126 Chief Delphi and the Robo Wranglers, it's really impressive to see a number 8 Alliance be able to not only go toe-to-toe, but knock out that Alliance, especially in 2004, with the number 1 seed having both the best first pick and backup bot. Not only that, but there was also some great things to be seen here. This was also Hammond's return tour. You had them go on to win the World Championship in 2004 after being absent in 2003 from Einstein. You also had some other big upsets besides these. You also had, for instance, Symbiotics being knocked out in the quarterfinals after a pretty good year. And with some very close matchups in both the Divisional and Einstein, it really goes to show just how interesting 2004 is to watch. I would recommend watching this if you get the chance. There's some great match video available, mainly of Hammond's Alliance's matches, and I would totally recommend watching it. And with 2 of the Einstein finals teams actually coming back from 2003's Einstein, that being, of course, 494 and the defending world champions 469, this is, of course, a great championship to watch. Next one I'm going to be going on to is, of course, 2005. Now, why would I go back-to-back? Well, let's talk about it. 2005 is not only a great year when it comes to game piece design, but also alliances. 2005 had, of course, the 3-member alliances with the Serpentine. So now you have 3-member alliances fighting instead of just 2, and therefore you already have a whole bunch of new strategies at play. Not only this, but you have some great alliances making it to Einstein. You have the Killer Bees and Buzz Robotics making it. And then also you have the first ever time a rarely known California team named the Cheesy Poofs would make the Einstein Finals. Them alongside 56 and 64, the Gila Monsters. This would be their year of their swan song, with it being their last year. They, of course, would go up against Hot's Alliance alongside Beach Bots and Frog Force. So now already in the finals of Einstein, you have very, very powerful alliances with many banners under their belt. It's a very close finals matches, with the first one being only decided by 2 points, so this is one I would definitely recommend watching, especially with how much fun the games are to watch, of course, in 2005. Next one, we will be skipping a little bit of time to 2007. Now, I've talked about 2007 before, but this was quite a while in the past. I picked this one almost entirely off of the Newton Division. This is a game where it was possible for lower-ranked alliances to win stuff. You have, of course, the number 8 Alliance of Newton making it all the way to Einstein. They'd upset the number 1 Alliance of 1503, 2194, and the Killer Bees. Go on to, yet again, knock out 2068 Wild Stang and Trucktown Thunder in the semis. And, of course, go on to win in the finals of the division yet again. Now, if that was just it alone, I might not have picked this one with an 8th Alliance making it to Einstein 1 of 3 times. However, not only did they do that, but they went on to win. And how did they go on to win? Well, they would go up against Hammond at the time. Hammond alongside the Pink Team and Team 179, alongside 2 of the best Floridian teams in the world at the time. You would have quite the competition. So not only were this 8th Alliance able to make it out of Einstein and also be able to beat another Einstein team, they would beat Hammond in 2007, and since then Hammond has not made it back to Einstein. And that's why it's one of my favorite ones to watch, of course, because who would have thought an 8th seed would not only beat the number 1 seed, but make it all the way to the finals, make it to Einstein, and then win Einstein, a feat which has not been replicated, but there have been 2 other times that a team has made it to Einstein, which really goes to show just how impressive it was for the 2007 Alliance. Next, we're going to move on to 2010. Talked about 2010 recently, and this really has to go to show for the Einstein field. It has 4 amazing alliances. You have OPs on Einstein. You have your Symbiotics on Einstein. You have 469, the game-breaking robot, alongside their second pick, 2041, against, of course, Hot's back here. You got Bobcat Robotics, my favorite second pick, and Beach City Robotics, the other half of Beach Bots. And, of course, with the fanfare of Symbiotics not losing some of the fewest matches in FRC history, with 469 having a robot that literally broke the game, against an alliance with, of course, Hot, who'd already lost Las Cruces before, and 294 who'd won a few regionals. The finals of this were incredibly close, being chosen by 2 and then 1 point. And then, of course, with the finals not going to the ones we all thought it would, these are some great matches to watch, and it took incredible strategy to bring down the robot that broke the game in 2010. I would definitely recommend watching this. Any matches in 2010 at Worlds were great to watch, so I would recommend this game as well. Next, we're going to move on to, of course, 2011. Why 2011? Well, I like this one a lot for the symbolism that it would cause. This would be a time yet again that random team from California, 254, would make it back to Einstein Finals. This time alongside Einstein Finals mainstay Wildstang and Black Horse 973, them being a really good team who was able to be picked up as their second pick. And then, of course, they'd be going up against Bobcat Robotics, Mighty Monkey Wrenches, and 781. Now, of course, this would spell the end for quite a few things. This would be the last time that 177 would make Einstein in a row, of course, with them having set a record of 6 consecutive Einstein appearances, a record that we all thought unbreakable until broken by, of course, Citrus Circuit's 1678. This was an incredible feat, and of course, with it all going down with the Einstein Finals, I find that incredible to watch. And of course, with this being the first championship win of 254, they would go on to tie the record set by Hammond many years prior. And of course, with 2 other alliances with the High Rollers, 968, and the Wings of Fire making Einstein, with, of course, 51 being the combination of 65 and 47, with both those teams coming together, coming in sync, and making it to Einstein, alongside another alliance, a 7th-ranked alliance, of the Thunder Chickens, 1503 and 25. This is a really good one to watch, especially when you get to the Einstein, for just how close the matches got, as well as how much fun it is to see just how much this changed the future of FRC. As for 2013, this is also another really good one to watch if you want to see some great divisional playoffs. Of course, you cannot forget the scorched earth that happened in 2013. In Citrus's division, they would go on to scorch multiple teams. This division, of course, was one of those divisions that at first seemed like a shoo-in to win the World Championship. There were so many good teams here that if they had teamed up together, they might have gone on to sweep. However, with Citrus Circuits being rank 1, they almost struck a deal with the Robo Wranglers to scorch many of the teams. You had some great teams in there. You had Skunkworks, you had OP Robotics, you had the Penguineers, you had the Hawaiian Kids. A lot of really good teams in here that ended up having to pick others due to being scorched by the number 1 seed. Now, with this happening, Citrus wasn't out in the clear. They had to win best of 3s in both the semis and the finals. And it really goes to show with just how much of a fight teams like OP Robotics and the Hot Team put up. It really goes to show just how hard it is to pull off an effective scorch. And with them reigning as a successful one, I would watch 2013 just for this division. Other things of note in 2013, you had another great division with the finalist division. In the division where the Bees, Mechanical Mayhem, and 469 would go on to win. Of course, 469 showing up quite a few times here. They, in the Archimedes division, they'd have to take on an alliance of course, the 2011 champions, the Cheesy Poofs, Team Appreciate, and Mort. With that being another powerful alliance in the third alliance, they'd have to win in the semis there. And then they weren't even out of the blue taking on a powerful number 1 High Rollers alliance, winning a best of 3 to make it to the finals. And of course, who can forget 2013 without talking about the finals, where you had Texas Torque and 2 Canadian teams, 610 and 1241, go on to beat that powerful Michigan alliance with 1519 to bring in what I would call a tremendous upset for the year 2013. With 1241 and 610 normally having to take on OP and not winning every regional they go to, and 1477 being in a powerful place. Yet again, it was nice to see these 3 teams come together, upset some juggernauts, and then go on to win here in the finals of Einstein. Now we're going to move on to, of course, 2015. Now, why am I talking about 2015? No, I've not gotten crazy. Rather, I'm talking about some of the alliances that made it to Einstein and just some of the things that came into play this year. I like a lot of the finals here. You did have some chances for some lower-ranked alliances to make it. It was great to see some 1 versus 8 when it came down to it, especially when you would never have a semifinals with 1 and 8, or say 2 and 7. It was great to see some alliances work together with what they had and make it on. Some of the greatest things watching in the history of FRC are to watch some teams work together in ways that you wouldn't have thought. Like see a 7th alliance take out the 2nd alliance and say the 3rd alliance, with them being able to work together in ways never thought possible. However, in 2015, let's look at some of the alliances. You have Symbotics, almost at the height of their power. After 2014 getting out in the finals of Einstein, they were incredibly close. And I believe that had they had an average of 1.67 points more, they really could have made the finals, and looking at how it played out, they could have won Einstein. And with them having waited since 2008 to do it, and with them not doing as well in the past few years, it's a big what if. What if Symbotics had been able to do so? Other than this, you had OP making Einstein again, this time with the Beach Bots. You had 2 Hawaiian teams, Kikimana and Hawaiian Kids making Einstein, together, of course, with them maintaining a powerful alliance, having to take out some strong ones to make it here. Even the lowest ranking teams here, you had Inverse Paradox and, of course, Bumblebee, the Israeli team. Both teams coming from a powerful division, of course, having to take on the Cheesy Poofs with one of the best robots in the world. They had to take on one of the highest averaging alliances, the Hot Alliance. With them, I'm very surprised that they did big Einstein with that, and looking at their averages, they very well, if they had matched it, could have made finals, even won Worlds with that, with their average being second only to the 270 set by the High Rollers Alliance. And of course, who can forget this without talking about the High Rollers in 28-26? Especially with 28-26 being powerful in their region, seeing them do incredibly well at the World Championship was a great thing to see too. You have 8 alliances here, many of which you could talk about for hours, and just how impressive it was them making it here. And of course, with 1678 keeping up the streak of consecutive Einstein appearances, them winning their Seoul Championship alongside the Robonauts Seoul Championship was a great thing to watch. So now what we're going to do is we're going to move on to our next one, which I'm not sure if you could guess it, but it is, of course, 2016. Now, why do I pick 2016, and why do I pick a consecutive one yet again? 2016, there were some great alliances, and that's a bit of a cop-out. When we look at 2016, with it having the same number of Einstein alliances as 2015, you had some great potential for things to happen. And no, I would not have picked this if I didn't have a really good reason. If we look at, of course, let's pick one division. Let's pick Curie. If you look at the quarterfinals, every single one ended with an upset. 8 beat 1, 5 beat 4, 6 beat 3, and 7 beat 2. And with some of these higher numbered alliances having good teams in them, it's a lot of fun to look at this. It's a lot of fun to see just what happened. And with, of course, I'm sure you already know what happened, but the number 8 alliance would go on to triumph. That consisting of course, Captain Stoypulse 694, Bumblebee, remember them from 2015, 379, the team who just barely got knocked out of their first regional, but made it to Einstein, and of course, Team 1511 filling the spot of a backup role. Now, when we come to 2016, you also have, in Einstein, some really good alliances, and some ones that knocked out some other really good alliances to make it there. I think the best example of this is the number 7th ranked alliance from Newton. You had them knock out the first ranked alliance of course, 1241 and the Cheesy Poofs, with the winners being the Thunder Chickens, 3rd 476, 4678, and 188 as their backup bot. 217 wasn't given the best hand, with them being the 7th alliance captain in a stacked division that had, of course, the Cheesy Poofs, Theory 6, the Robonauts, and many others. What they were able to get, they were able to put to the best of their ability. 3476 was an amazing robot when it came to close-range shooting. 4678 was able to put up some high numbers, and together they were able to put together an alliance that not only could upset in the quarters and semis, but make it to the finals and beat, of course, some of the best robots in the world. Now, how would this translate to Einstein? The alliance that took out the Cheesy Poofs and Theory 6, how did they do? Well, they were knocked out in the quarters of Einstein by, of course, Who could you guess? Citrus Circuits 1678, 148, and 2990. Who would have guessed that a few years after 148 would team up with Citrus Circuits to make Einstein in 2013? They would team up yet again, this time 148 picking Citrus Circuits. And this alliance alongside Fusion 364 and 2990 would go all the way to the semifinals, where they would take on a very fun alliance, an alliance from Carver. An alliance of BeachBots 2481, Cleveland's Team 120, and 1086 Blue Cheese. Now this alliance would actually have a fun story. In the quarterfinals they would win 2-0, but every single matchup after that they would be in a rubber match, and they were one match from getting out all the way from the semifinals to the finals at Einstein. After beating this, they would go up against another powerful alliance. And the thing is, with all 8 of these alliances, all of them earned their place on Einstein, and yet there were some great matches to be had. For instance, the highest score on Einstein was set by, who else, of course, but the Galileo Alliance. A team made up, of course, the Cyber Knights, the High Rollers, remember them? 1197 and 1065. Now this Cyber Knights Alliance, after the Cyber Knights had been knocked out by the Robonauts the previous year in their own division, they would come back with a vengeance, this time starting a streak of Einstein appearances themselves. Who would have thought it? And them alongside the Einstein mainstay High Rollers would put up a fight, scoring some of the highest scores on Einstein, being taken out by, who could have guessed it, OP Robotics alongside 1690 Orbit from Israel, 1405, and a great 3015 as their second pick who had been switched out after the quarterfinals of Einstein. Now in the finals you had 2 amazing alliances representing quite a bit of history. You had BeachBots, who had to wait quite a bit to make it back to this position in the finals of Einstein, alongside 2481, 120 Cleveland's team, and of course 1086 Blue Cheese, with this alliance being one that was cobbled up together as number 2 in Carver. They would, of course, in a division with, of course, Symbotics in there as well, you would have this alliance come together and have some amazing things. 330, of course, built a robot that would be able to both be high to shoot with higher accuracy and fold down to be able to go through the low bar. At 2481, the team who could shoot from the defenses, thus not having to worry about defense. 120 was a low bot who could easily clear the low bar and then shoot, as well as play defense if they needed to, and 1086 Blue Cheese was a nice team to round out this alliance. However, when I look at significance of this Einstein, the one that I look at precisely is, of course, Tesla. With Captain 2056 OP Robotics, they had some struggles in the past. 2010, they were taken out in the semifinals of Einstein by, of course, the eventual champions. 2012, after having an unfortunate case of being in 2012 and one of their partners being shut down, them and Symbotics weren't able to make it out of the semifinals against the eventual Einstein finalists. 2015. In 2014, they went up against the strongest scoring alliance in 2014, that being the number 8 alliance, who was able to cobble together, as I talked about a few weeks ago. And of course, only a few years after that, the next year, 2015, them and BeachBots being powerful, however not able to crack into the semis of Einstein. Now with all this being said, 2056 and 330, who both teamed up the previous year, were now on opposite sides of the finals of Einstein, something they wanted to do together the previous year, however were able to do in 2016. The nice thing about 2016 is that if you look at all of these robots, the best scoring robot in every single alliance wasn't too far off of one another. I really could have seen any one of these, almost every single one of 8 of these alliances, I could have seen in the finals. I could have easily seen Galileo in the finals. I could have easily seen, of course, Hopper in the finals. There are some great teams here, and I really could have seen a lot of these matches going another way. However, with how it went, we had an amazing finals with, of course, the jaw-dropping finale with, of course, 225 to 225. That last match I would watch, and I believe is one of the greatest matches in all of FRC history, with it being decided by a penalty, a 5-point penalty, which evened the score, which meant it went to red and kept up the drought for OP when it comes to Einstein championships. However, this wouldn't be the last year they made Einstein, not even close. However, if I were to pick a match in FRC that you have to watch, it would be Finals Match 3 at the 2016 Einstein Finals. Now, if you think I've been talking about 2016 for too long, don't worry, we have one more left, that being, of course, number 10. Now, of the 3 remaining years, I'm going to do a bit of a cop-out. What I'm going to say is I'm going to pick one year, and I'm going to recommend both championships for 2 very different reasons. As we all know, the championships did split after 2016, that being, of course, in St. Louis and Houston in 2017, then in Detroit and Houston in 2018 and 19, with we not knowing exactly what's going to happen the next year. What I will say, however, is I would totally recommend 2019, both of them, both Detroit and Houston, for 2 very different reasons. If you want to watch some high-scoring ones with some differing strategy, I would recommend Houston. If you want to watch some amazing defense with some well-cobbled-together alliances, I recommend Detroit. So now I will start with 2019 Detroit. Why? Why is Detroit one to watch? Well, let me explain why. When it came to Detroit, it wasn't the same as Houston. You didn't have the same high-flying scores as you did in Houston. However, you did have some of the best alliances in the world. And let me explain why. When it came to Detroit, defense was the name of the game. One of the biggest differences between Detroit and Houston is the quality of second and third picks. With Detroit having a large overflow of teams who are good but not good enough to make an alliance, you end up with some lower ranked alliances having the same chances as a higher ranked alliance to be able to win. And therefore you have some of this in here with, for the first time that I've seen, not a single one of these alliances were a number 1 alliance. That is, I believe, the first time I have ever seen a championship have this happen. So why does that matter? Well, that just goes to show that lower-ranked alliances really did have a good thing here, and there are some great divisional rounds to watch. And of course, there were a few where number 1 alliance was in the finals and it went to a best of 3. However, the alliance that did go on to win put up a powerful fight with their second and third picks. Let's talk about some of the alliances here and why they matter. Archimedes. This is almost a mirror image of 2013's finalist alliance, with it being 3 very good teams from from different places that aren't always the best and aren't always seen as the greatest teams of their region. However, together they made a powerful couple. 5406, Caltex, a Canadian team, who isn't always in the discussion for the best Canadian team, however is really good when paired up with some great partners. 930, the Makwanego Bears, a team who's really good out of the Midwest, however isn't always in contention for the best team in their region. Of course, who could forget Run-Made Robotics 1310? Them being good as well and rounding out a good alliance with, of course, a Michigan team, Team 4004, rounding out with Mars Rover as their backup bot. This alliance would, of course, as I've said before, as I've kind of alluded to, go on to the finals of Einstein to become a mirror image of 2013. Tesla, who had a very defense-heavy alliance, 346, 548, 5401, and 2534, with 548 the Robostanks having done well in the previous competitions, and of course, with some heavy defense on this alliance's side, they would actually be a team to only lose a single match. They would go 2-1-2, tying twice, of course, ironically, the first and second ranked alliances. With this alliance, unfortunately not able to make it into the top 2 due to that fact. And who would they lose the one match to? Would it be the world champions? No. Would it be the world finalists? No. It would actually be to the Curie Alliance. Now, who would captain this Curie Alliance? Well, who other than 195 the Cyber Knights? Making Einstein in 2016, 17, 18, and 19, they would have one heck of a story to make it here. Alongside Team 3538, the Michigan's RoboJackets, 1073 and 230, they would have one heck of a story to make it here. They were in part of what many would call one of the most stacked divisions in Worlds, and one thing that I've found when it comes to these things is that the stacked division isn't always the one to win. Actually, very rarely does this happen, with the notable exception being 2008. However, with some stacked teams here, you had Symbotics, OP Robotics, Strikeforce, the High Rollers, Theory 6, Cyber Knights, RoboJackets, the Bedford Express, and many more you can talk about. You even had a fun number 8 alliance consisting of the Bionic Blackhawks, the 28 Hall of Fame team, 3339 Bumblebee, remember them, Beak Squad, and of course Gale Force 126. they would be taken out easily by the number one alliance. Now, unlike previous years with a stacked division, this one would have the intended result. Rank 1 would be who else but Symbotics. We've talked about them before. We've talked about 2019 Curie before, and you know just how much of a feat it was with them only losing a single match in the rankings. They would team up with, of course, you know them, you love them, OP Robotics, and going into the playoffs having lost a combined total of 10 matches all year. And you know just how hard it is, as we've all had experiences with either robots breaking or unlucky matches where you lose a qualification match here or there. Well, Symbotics lost 4 on their way to make it all the way here. OP losing 6. 2 of those being to Symbotics at the District Championship. Alongside 42-96 and a really good Michigan defense bot 107. They would be an amazing number 1 alliance, and one that I actually had predicted to go on to win the World Championship. However, as Destiny would have unfolded, the number 4 alliance would do what I had thought impossible and go on to make it to the Einstein field. Playoff results for this division, right all the way down for the quarterfinals. Not a single upset in the quarterfinals, with alliances 1 through 4 sweeping, making it onto the semifinals. And with exception of semi-score 1, you would have, of course, right all the way down with alliances 2 and 4, of course. Now for semis 1. Semi 1, match 1, you have an upset by OP's least favorite friend, the penalty. With a score of 95-95, this would be won by, of course, penalties, with a very unfortunate score of 3 fouls caused by the Red Alliance, caused the Blue Alliance to win by a score of 0, which OP had been well accustomed to. Well, this has happened before. Happened in 2009, with the first one being lost by, of course, OP and Symbotics, that time being partnered with Frog Force. Now that match 2, they would win 109-102. However, semis match 3 would be an outstanding display of defense, one worthy of the Hall of Fame of robotics. With, of course, 195's alliance, 1073 playing outstanding defense, better quality of defense than 107 could play, with 1114 being shut down, with a score of 98-106. The 4th alliance would win, upsetting the dynamic duo, going on to the finals of Einstein, where they would easily dispatch the number 2 alliance of Strike Force, ending their two-year in a row Einstein streak, and of course the High Rollers, the Einstein mainstay. And this was the 3rd ranked alliance. They didn't even make the 4th ranked alliance. They didn't even make Einstein finals, with them going 3-2, losing matches to both the number 1 and number 2 alliances, who we talked about before, with the Brighton Techno Dogs and, of course, the Thunder Chickens, and of course Mukwanagō and Celt X. 4th alliance was, of course, the Tide one, and the Curious Alliance would hold the record being the only team to beat Tesla. However, with losing 2 matches, they would not make the finals of Einstein. Now with Carson, this one being headed up by, of course, Team 50/50 Cowtown, them alongside Einstein mainstays, 111 Wild Staying, 4607 and 2052. This alliance, although going 1-4, would be a powerful one, scraping by, making it all the way to Einstein, and then going up against some very powerful alliances. Daily Alliance, unlike 2017 and 18, would not do as well. This time with Trisonics, 133, 862, and 2614. Mars making Einstein after 2017 coming close, and 2018 coming up close. They would go 0-5. However, the finals of Einstein wouldn't be a direct mirror of 2013. First match would, of course, be won by Mukwanagō Celtex at 13-10, 107-101. Now, in the second match would be won, of course, by your Thunder Chickens, Brighton Techno Dogs, and 4481, the Dutch team, Rembrandts. And, of course, in the finals, in a display of what I would call truly leaving it all on the field, you would have Thunder Chickens break and fall down under the batter at the end, and with a score of 91-90, the second closest Einstein finals of all time, the Blue Alliance would win, and Darwin would go on to win the championship. Now with this, with an incredible close finals, and what I would call truly leaving it all on the field, I would consider this to be an incredible Einstein to watch. And of course, with every single divisional round ending with the number one alliance not making Einstein, this is truly one for the history books. Now I'm going to talk about why Houston Einstein was another one to watch. Now this one's good for different reasons than 2018 Detroit. This one is known for high-flying scores and even higher flying alliances. This one had a lot more number one alliances making it, with several, and if almost not every single one of these being number one or number two alliances. This isn't 2018 Houston, where of course the number 8 alliance would make it to Einstein. Rather yet, every single one of these 6 alliances would win at least one match, with even the worst alliance having an incredible showing. Now, one thing about this we need to talk about is, of course, the number one ranked at the end of round robin, the Turing Alliance. One thing people talk about for 2 years, was the Turing Curse. Of course, I do not believe in curses that don't begin with Curie Curse. The Turing Curse had existed with that division going 0-5 in both 2017 and 18 in Houston, with this year actually going 5-0, being led at the helm by, of course, you know them, you love them, the Cheesy Poofs, who we've talked about quite a bit on the way here in our top 10 championships. With them making yet again another finals at Einstein, we must only ask, who else are they with? Well, of course, you have one of the best teams in Texas, 3310 Blackhawk Robotics. With them being an IFI team, and of course with it being their 10th anniversary, this was a year for the history books. Alongside the Cheesy Poofs, they could do no wrong. Then with their 2 partners, 6986 and 948, that being PPT Bots and NRG, this would be yet another alliance, one for the history books indeed. Now who's our second ranked alliance? Why, of course, it's 973, who could forget them? They were partners with 254 only a few years ago. And of course, having been partners with some other great alliances, them being the captains here, and alongside with an incredible showing in 2017 with another big upset, they have been known as quite the upset team in Houston. Them alongside 1323, who can forget them? One of the best teams in this year. They would go on. 1323 would be a great first pick. Them for many regionals, Madtown would be quite the force to be reckoned with. Them alongside 5026, you know them, you love them. They have the triple level 3 Iron Panthers would make for a great second pick, and 14201 would round them out as their backup bot. Now, pretty fittingly, every single triple climb robot in the world would make Einstein. All 2 of them. And who would that other one be? But of course, 1678 Citrus Circuits. Them, of course, this year breaking the record set many years ago in 2011 by 177. They would round it out by, of course, picking up one of the youngest teams to ever make Einstein, 7179. That, of course, being Crossfire. This would be one of the lowest ranked alliances on Einstein, the third alliance, with there being quite a bit going down in the Carver division. Now, before we move on to our 4th, 5th, and 6th, let's talk a little bit about Carver and what 1678 had to do to make it here. This was almost arguably a stacked division. 1678 had some great picks that, had they gone with, they very well could have made Einstein finals with. Team Fusion would end up getting the Golden Rose of being first seed, and they would of course pick Team 330. Beach Bots. With 1678 wanting to team up with them, unfortunately for them, they would have to go further on to make it to Einstein. With 4911 having the number 2 seed, they would of course pick 118 the Robonauts, and with 118 being one of 1678's other most likely picks, it was unfortunate for them, and now they had to pick whoever was left. And of course, they would pick 7179, not a bad team at all. With 7179 being a much younger team, Crossfire, of course, in their second season, would make for the best remaining pick, and alongside 3132, the Hall of Fame team in 1939, they would go on to be the number 3 alliance. Thunder Down Under would provide some amazing defense and some amazing hatch scoring, and this alliance would have to compete with some of the best, going up against alliances consisting of both Beach Bots and their Swan Song Year, as well as the Robonauts. In the quarterfinals, they'd have to contend against the number 6 alliance, actually losing one of their quarterfinals matches 80-88, but winning a best of 3 by 1 point in the final one, going on to the semifinals. Unfortunately for BeachBots, they would be taken out in the semifinals by a different alliance. This one, of course, being the number 5 alliance, and unfortunately this would end BeachBots' career, with this being their final year competing. Then you have the number 3 alliance, with of course, who can forget 1678, 7179, 3132, taking out an alliance 4911, 118, and 2147, 5006 alliance, going on to the finals, with Robonauts and BeachBots being taken out in the semifinals. You had, of course, the number 5 alliance, the number 3 alliance. In typical fashion, the number 3 alliance would take out the number 5 alliance 106 to 93 and 109 to 90 in 2 not very close matches, with this alliance, of course, making Einstein. The thing about 177's Einstein Trek was that they didn't have it easy. There were many years where they barely made worlds off of a waitlist or off of a previous championship victory, and making it there several times as a second pick really go to show just how much they had to fight to get there. Now, 1678 had some great picks, either being a number 1 pick or a number 1 seed, making Einstein several times. However, this year I would argue would be their hardest one since 2013, with them having to pilot an alliance, not getting their top 2 picks for it. And then, of course, having to take out the Robonauts in the semifinals. Now let's look at the 4th alliance. You had my favorite, the Palindrome Alliance, 971, 179, 3646, and 498. Although not a alliance consisting of all the same number, 971 and 179 would make for one heck of a palindrome alliance. When I first watched all the matches, I thought that they would be the number 2 ranked seed and would become our Einstein finals against 254's alliance. They would almost be the 2 Rockets alliance. 971 would take 1 rocket, 179 would take the other rocket, and then 3646 or 498 would play outstanding defense on the other side of the field. And for quite a few matches, it looked like it would work out. They won their first match. They won their second match. They lost their match against 254's alliance by a pretty close margin, and then after losing to, of course, Madtown alliance, they were now out of the running for making Einstein finals. However, then Madtown's alliance would go on to be in most contention, going 4-1, losing only to 254's alliance. So good, our 5th one, Team Taters in 2046 would make Einstein here, with them not being as powerful as some of the other alliances. However, they would go on to beat an alliance, becoming 1-4 on Einstein. Other than this, in Roebling, 148 to the Robo Wranglers would be second in their division, ending up picking 38-47, 68-29, and 29-07 to go on to the Einstein field. They would rank 6th in terms of cargo points and only winning a single match. However, with them being, of course, the best in their division and putting up some high scores, I do have a lot of respect for them. And it goes to show that when the weakest team on Einstein can still put up some highly impressive scores, it really goes to show just how powerful this can be. It really goes to show just how powerful Einstein can be. Now we go into the finals. You have, of course, finals match 1 with Turing versus Newton. Now I'm not sure how many of you have actually watched this match video itself, but I would totally recommend it. Finals 1. Won by the Red Alliance, 117 and 106, 254's alliance going on to win and looking like they would be the first ever team to win 5 championships, and of course winning the back-to-back-to-back. Finals match 2, with one of my favorite displays, a very powerful defensive match, 973, 1323, and 5026 would upset 119 to 98, bringing it to 3. Finals match 3 is one of my favorite other matches to watch, with it being, of course, an immense display of defense as well as just how powerful a climb can be. Now, of course, with Finals 3 being a very different match, it would end with some technical difficulties with 254 having to throw off a hatch when it got stuck on them. However, with 3310 and 6986 going powerful, with 973, 1323, and 5026 also trying to score as much as they could, it still ended with a triple climb on the red. However, although having a triple climb, it would not equal to the amount of points scored by our Blue Alliance, and 114 and 103 it would win with a tremendous upset, with 973 having their second time at Houston getting an upset, and alongside Madtown, 5026 and 4201, they would go on to become the Houston World Champions. Now, like I've said before, I would recommend all 10 of these to every single one of you. Now, if you made it all the way to the end of my video, thank you very much. I apologize for wasting so much of your time, but I will be putting in the timestamps for each of these. I will be putting in the description every single one of these as well. I would recommend watching the finals of every single one of these if you get the chance, and I would recommend looking more into the games as well. These are my own personal opinions of what I've seen. I would love to see yours in the comments below. Thank you all for watching. This has been the FRC Historian.